everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Jeremy G. Schneider, a licensed master social worker and marriage family therapist who brings together two worlds that don't often meet, clinical psychology and technology leadership. Before returning to full-time therapeutic work, Jeremy spent 15 years as a chief technology officer, leading teams and building complex systems. Today, he applies that same system thinking to emotional healing and trauma recovery. He's the founder of Build on Your Strength, a mental health education platform serving a global community of over 8,000 members. And he taught trauma recovery and nervous system regulation workshops to more than 2,300 participants. Jeremy also writes for Psychology Today, exploring how artificial intelligence is changing the future of mental health care and how AI can be used as a reflective tool to support growth without replacing human connection. Jeremy, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
All right. I want to start from the beginning, right?
Okay.
Two worlds colliding. Yeah, so you spent 15 years as a CTO before returning to therapy. So how did working in, technology shape the way you now approach emotional healing?
I'm not sure that technology shapes the way that I think about healing as much as healing shaped the way I think about technology. It really helped me to understand that to help people with technology, we're talking a lot about change. We're talking a lot about shifts. And so, you know, that involves a lot of mental health that people get very concerned about the way things are changing, the way things, when they don't work, they get very comfortable doing the same thing over and over again. Technology often impacts that kind of routine in a very difficult and challenging way for people. So I really like being able to help them with that. In terms of the way it helps me think about healing, I think the thing that I would just add is that I think that technology has really been useful in thinking about other ways beyond more traditional therapy to help people. I think that's what I've really kind of gotten out of it.
Okay. So that means technology has actually helped, healing become more advanced, right? They've thought of like a
Yeah.
whole lot of things. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think what technology can really do when it comes to healing is I think it can expand the
mm,
breadth of what we can do. I think
okay.
therapy has a more narrow approach to healing. And
Mm,
I think when we add in tools
mm,
that are technologically oriented, we can expand the breadth of
mm.
how we can reach people, how we can educate people, how we can help give people more tools that they need than what is sort of more traditionally done in therapy.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I have a question for that one, but I think that will be like towards the end of the podcast. I want us to first of all talk about, like system thinking and mental health, basically. So, tech leaders, they often think in like systems and patterns, right? So how does that like perspective apply to, trauma and emotional growth?
So it's interesting you asked that. The my first master's before I got into technology is in family therapy. And family therapy teaches family systems. And so it's the first psychological model that really looked at a person as really part of a larger system. And that system, a family, has its own ways of communicating, own ways of interacting, own ways of processing information and handling things. And that in order to really better understand the person, we have to understand the system from which they came from.
Right.
Well, when I got into technology, I realized I was just dealing with systems that were all based in technology. And then realized when I'm dealing with organizations, I'm just dealing with larger families that have the same system perspective. And so coming back to mental health and healing again, that system perspective has been really reinforced for me. And so one of the models that I use the most now is something called internal family systems. And it's the idea that we are made up of different parts so that we are not just like one thing, we're several things, and they all interact and play with each other. And in order to really move forward on our healing journeys, the more we understand these different parts and how they impact us and what their experiences are, the healthier that we can become. And so for me, it's been this like wild systemic journey through both family systems, technology systems, organizational systems, and now back to the individual system.
Okay, all right. Wow. I'm just hearing the model internal family system for the first time, right? And I know you've explained, but I would like to actually know more about it. So,
Well, I love talking about it, so you might have to get me to shut up at some point. Just give me like a sign, tell me to be quiet.
no, no, it's
So,
fine.
internal family systems was created by a therapist by the name of Richard Schwartz. And he's written a ton of books. He's quite prolific. One of his most famous books is called No Bad Parts. So if that's like something that you or your listeners are really into, that'd probably be a good entryway. But and I will try to make this brief. And again, feel free to just cut me off if I go on too long. But the basic concept of internal family systems is that we are all, we all have a self with a capital S. That is who we are, our adult sense of being. Our self is born good, right? Nobody's born bad. Nobody's born broken. Nobody's born not good enough, right? We're born good. As we grow up, maybe our parents make mistakes. Maybe they're not good at certain areas. Maybe we go through difficult adversities. Maybe we really experience intense trauma. Whatever it is, anytime we start to have these difficult experiences, parts develop in order to protect us. That's not like personality disorder or anything like that. There's just a very normal way that we all have developed. So as we get older, we become adults, we start to realize, okay, there's this sense of self, but there's all these parts that are impacting the way that we behave and experience the world. So a good example of this is I was doing a podcast last week, and I found myself really anxious. I'm like, I've done podcasts before. This is, as I like to say, it's not my first rodeo, right?
Right.
But I found myself so anxious that it was like getting hard to concentrate. So what I realized, I was able to take a step back. I was like, this is really a part. A part of me is anxious. That part is trying to protect me, right? It's afraid that if I put myself out there, if I share my thoughts and feelings and ideas, that someone could laugh at me or humiliate me or say something mean or whatever it is, right? And then I would get hurt. This part tries to protect me from that by trying to say, no, 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 don't do that. Don't take that risk.
Mm.
It's not a bad part because there aren't bad parts. It's not trying to hurt me. Parts come from a place where it's trying to protect us.
Mm.
And so I was then able to say, oh, right, yeah, I'm putting myself out there. That's scary. Of course it's scary. We're scared, but we can handle it. I'm
Mm.
kind of old now, you know, I'm no longer in my 20s or 30s or, other ages after that. So like I can handle this. I'm going to be able to take care of us. And if something does happen, I'll be able to handle that too. And that part calms down and I'm able to do the podcast and it went really well. Parts are interacting and popping up all the time. And so one of the IFS internal family systems metaphors they use is like, who's driving the bus? And the idea is that our sense of self, we're driving a bus and we've got all these parts in the back. And when everything is fine, they're fine. They're just sitting there doing nothing. But when something difficult happens or something that reminds us of difficult times we had in the past, a part drives the bus. It just like takes over driving the bus.
Okay.
And if you think about that, if a 10-year-old is driving a bus, things tend to not go so well. Just like when a 10-year-old is driving our life, we don't always make the best decisions. We don't always feel the best. Life feels a lot more overwhelming when we feel 10 than when we feel like adults. A lot of that is just all parts coming into play. So I'm going to take a breath. And if you have other questions, you're welcome to ask, but I have to stop myself, otherwise I will keep going.
No, it's fine, actually. I like when my guests are very expressive. That way, I myself, I can understand better, right? So yeah, talking about mental health and, why people stay stuck. I want this to be like more realistic. So from your experience, what keeps people, trapped in like survival mode emotionally?
So I think there's two things that happen to us when
Mm,
we're younger or when we have difficult experiences. One is, I really do believe this, that parts come into play
mm,
and we're just, our parts have taken over. And so when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel like we can't handle this, when we feel like we're not good enough, all of that, those are parts. That's not who we are. That's parts trying to protect us from some sense of being worse. So it's that parts work that's really important. The other thing is that doesn't get talked about enough, I think, particularly for younger people, is nervous system regulation.
mm,
When we go through difficult experiences, particularly when we've been traumatized in some way, our nervous system goes into fight or flight mode. And we don't necessarily know how to turn it off. When we're in fight or flight mode, our body is more accelerated, we are more wired, we tend to sleep less, and we tend to sleep more poorly. It's harder to think clearly, it's harder to function. All of those things make our lives a little bit more difficult. And when we're walking around with our nervous system overactivated, with these parts overactivated, everything feels harder. Everything. And what I want to help people understand is that it's not that things are harder, it's just that things feel harder. And it's an enormous distinction. So I go through periods of my life regularly, and I have done an enormous amount of work on myself. I had a very difficult childhood, a lot of trauma experiences. And so I will have these moments where it's like, I'm just feeling so anxious, or I'm feeling like I can't handle everything that's going on. And we all have that, particularly those of us that have been through difficult experiences. But the thing is, if we can then have some awareness, and this is what I teach most about self-awareness and self-compassion, if we can have some self-awareness that helps us to see, wait a second, just the fact that I'm saying things like, I feel overwhelmed, that I can't handle this, is not a sign that I can't handle it. It's actually a sign that my nervous system is overactivated. It's a sign that a part has taken over, and I need to do a little bit more to take care of myself. And that's, I think, the biggest shift that people can make in their lives is being able to have that level of awareness to see, wait a second. I feel overwhelmed not because I can't handle this. I feel overwhelmed because my nervous system is kind of out of control. Let me help calm my nervous system. Things like breathing exercises, grounding exercises, walks in nature, physical activity, creativity, right? Things that help slow our nervous system down. We're actually going to be able to start to experience the world as less overwhelming.
So, it's basically about like understanding yourself, right? Understanding that sometimes feelings are like most times not true. You might be feeling some certain way, but realistically, it's not true. Maybe you feel not good enough at a particular time, but truth is that you are actually good enough. It's just your nervous system that's anxious, right? Okay, okay, I
Yes, absolutely.
understand that one. All right, so
Yeah,
yeah.
one thing I love telling people, and this just kind of is shocking, is thoughts are not facts.
Hmm.
Just because we think it doesn't mean it's true. It just means we thought it. We sometimes have the craziest thoughts. Like I will have thoughts of like, I know something is boiling hot, and my mind will be like, we should touch it and see what it feels like. And you're like, no, let's not touch that. Because we know that's not fact, it's just a thought. But when we have the thought of like, I'm not good enough, we believe it. But it's just another thought.
All right. So I like the fact that we are talking about, the mental health and, emotional intelligence and all. But yeah, I want us to talk about, recovery, trauma recovery, right? Although I have a whole lot of questions, it's just time is limited. So if you don't mind, actually, we could do like a part two where we can do like a deep dive into real time matters and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you could tell I like talking about this. So,
All right. So yeah, for now, I want us to talk about, practical trauma recovery. So for someone who suspects they may be carrying, unresolved trauma, what are some first steps towards healing?
so there's a few things. I think for the purposes of moving forward on one's healing journey, for lack of a better term, self-awareness is absolutely critical. We need to understand what we're doing, understanding of why we're doing it. Without that, it's almost impossible to change. We need to know what we're struggling with in order to be able to change the way we handle it. So that's one. Two, and this is a real hard one, but self-compassion. We're raised in many cultures around the world that self-compassion, being kind to ourselves, is like goofy or woo-woo or just something weird and like or it's being we're too easy on ourselves and we have to be hard on ourselves to push ourselves to go do something. Self-compassion is in and of itself healing. Self-compassion is treating ourselves the way we deserve to be treated. And for those of us who have gone through various levels of trauma, self-compassion is part of the healing from that trauma. It's essentially saying, hey, what you went through, that sucked. It's okay that it affects you. It's okay that it's hard. It's okay that some days are so challenging, but you're going to be okay. You're going to get through that. Self-awareness and self-compassion are a really good combination. And then to really get going, that's where you get to that nervous system regulation, right? For those of us that are dealing with trauma, our nervous system is overactivated. It is working way too hard. And we're so used to it revving at such a high speed that we don't notice that it's happening. So we have to make extra effort multiple times a day to slow our nervous system down. I talk about our nervous system being like a speeding train, and that the way you slow down a speeding train is a couple of things. One, you want to manage its speed. The way I think about that is just like managing our thoughts and our feelings, processing our emotions. When things happen to us, to process that, to deal with it, to work through it. That helps manage the speed. I like to say that we implement things called station stops, which is just my silly way of saying, let's pause during the day and do breathing activities, do grounding activities, do all sorts of self-care activities, because all of those things kind of challenge our nervous system to slow down so that we stop, and then it'll pick up speed to get going again. But in that moment, we've slowed it down. The more we help our nervous system know it's okay to slow down, the less likely it is to kick back into fight or flight mode. And then the third part is being able to wind down. So a lot of people have trouble going to sleep at night because their nervous system is so overactivated. But they'll like start to go to bed at 11 o'clock so that they fall asleep at 11:15. And it's like, that's not possible. When our nervous system is overactivated, we might need an hour or two of like real wind down time to slow ourselves down so that we can fall asleep. And that, whether that's calming music, whether that's reading a good book, whether it is gentle stretching, breathing exercises, grounding exercises, all of these kinds of things that we can do to take care of ourselves. So those are the three things I really think about: self-awareness, self-compassion, nervous system regulation.
Self-awareness, self-compassion, and nervous system regulation.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, thank you so much. Actually, this conversation has been fascinating. And it talks about, the intersection of like psychology and personal growth. So thank you for that one. And by the way, I've learned a whole lot from this, honestly.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad. This was really great.
Okay. And yeah, it brings us to the final, segment of my podcast. It's called the rapid fire segment. So
I think I'm
starting
ready.
now. Okay, starting now, I'll just ask a few questions and you answer rapidly. So, yeah, healing begins when.
We take care of ourselves.
All right, yeah, and technology should support.
Whatever we want.
Okay, and yeah, self-awareness grows through.
Practice.
And yeah, the nervous system needs.
Soothing.
Okay, and real connection requires.
Effort.
And yeah, lastly, growth happens when.
We keep doing the things we need to do to care for ourselves.
All right. So yeah, thank you so much, Jeremy. And where can listeners get to know more about you and what you do?
So I run a meetup community, and I also run this company, and I do a lot of workshops and coaching intensives. So the easiest way to find out about me is at jgs.net, JGS, those are my initials, .net. That'll take you to my website, buildonyourstrengths.com. And there they can look at the services I provide and the community I'm a part of and the workshops and everything.
Okay. All right. So yeah, thank you, Jeremy. This has been amazing. And to my listeners, thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this, and also subscribe so you don't miss out on your episode. Thank you, Jeremy. Do have a wonderful day. And yeah, I'm looking forward to a part two, but I will reach out to you regarding that one actually.
Me too. That sounds good.